Yeah.
what we do.
I'd like to call a meeting to order. It's about 3 after 6. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Changes in the agenda.
There's no changes to agenda.
Okay, communications.
No communications.
Okay, discussion items. Communication board report.
Perfect. We have here today, we have Amy Forrest for our communications department. We have Jack McCaskill from our facilities, and we have Sheila Wood from our finance. They're going to go over their board reports and share with you guys and have some conversations. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Amy Forrest, and she can start this process.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Thank you for the opportunity for us to discuss our departments and what's going on in the world of communications department. I like to look at the department, and this is kind of how I approached it when I first started. It's kind of got 3 buckets. You've got the marketing promotion bucket, then you've got the communications side of it, and then you've got the public relations part. So it's multifaceted and so dynamic, as you can imagine. But within those buckets, I mean, there's a lot of responsibility. As you can see in the board packet that I presented, there are other responsibilities such as the website. That is my responsibility. And I can tell you right now, after about 1.5 years, there's still a lot more work to be done on it. I always say, I really want to focus on the forms section and the resources section, because I think that that could be organized a little bit better. And still, continue to move forward and making it more user-friendly. But in running the analytics of the website, which I put in the board packet, you can see that the usage. Hi, Mike. You can see that the user number is really good. Like you can see new visitors, returning visitors. I broke down all of the data. So we can look through the timeline. November 1 was my start date, 2021. And then when I collected all of this data and ran this report, it was March 17th, actually. So I apologize if the data isn't to, last Friday, for instance, a month later. I was just being mindful of getting this into Stephanie. So at any rate, a lot can be told from the data of the website. With regard to the sessions, bounce rate, they really do. Most analytics look at the bounce rate when they look at website analytics, simply because 50% is an excellent bounce rate. And it's a literal term. It means that you bounce off the website because you aren't really opening a page into it. You're not going and searching through that website. It's bouncing you. You're not even looking at it. So the lower the bounce rate, the better. So we're at 61%. So that means we're captivating the attention enough to keep the people on the website, which is a good thing. And but I would like to see that number go down. And it's my personal opinion that we can do that, like as I was mentioning, in the future, getting more people to use the website, getting the perception that it's easier to use than it is. Because I think the perception was for so long that, this is frustrating. I can't find this. I can't find that. And I still believe there's work to be done there. So that's that part of it. I also look a lot at I consistently run the analytics for our social media as well. And if you'll look at, I apologize for my board report being probably the very longest you've ever seen in the history of directors. But I really wanted to have the opportunity to show you under the caption there, social media. When I run the social media, I monitor 14 accounts on Facebook, 4 accounts on Instagram, 3 accounts on Twitter. And when I say monitor, I just really try to make it routine. I get all the notifications and I can glance and whatnot, but I really do that just to mitigate risk, mitigate anything that would be obscene in nature or anything that would be inappropriate for any of our students or families or employees to see. So long story short, I do manage those, but my primary responsibility is just the districts. That's the posts that I actually create myself. So if it's district Twitter, district Facebook, and our district Instagram. So that's what these numbers are here. And if you look at, again, the time frame from when I started to March 17th, our Facebook reach, we reached 84,000 people within the time frame that I've been hired, with an increase of 361%. Our Instagram reach grew 468%, reaching 1,600 people throughout this year. This is all new. And then you look at page profile and visits. That's the one I'm actually the most fond of, because we want people to come to our Facebook to see what's going on, because a number of times when I post, I always link it to our website. I either link a story, or I'll link a department, or I'll link something to that particular post. And so our page and profile visits are up 1,000%, 38,000 page visits. Our Instagram visits are up 609%. Our new likes and followers are up 339%. And Instagram followers, unfortunately, I didn't get a percentage, but if I could do my little calculation, I could get you a percentage. New Instagram followers for that time frame is 167 new followers. Now, interestingly enough, these are all different demographics. So for Instagram, it's a much, I want to say, younger population. We're talking 18 to 25. Our Facebook is more of the 45-year-old to 54-year-old is our Facebook. So each category is a little bit different when it comes to looking at the analytics, and that's what drives my messaging to each of those platforms. And I am proud to say that OSPI has retweeted 3 of my tweets themselves. Walmart has as well. And I've got that in my little portfolio feather in my cap that I'm doing it all right, I guess. We don't have many ways or resources that are free, for instance, like social media, to get the word out and to share with the community what we're doing. And I'm very proud of the fact that anybody who follows any of our social media accounts across the board, I'm always fair and considerate to make sure everyone gets covered, from facilities, putting up our new mid-level sign outside. I remember I did a post about that. Thank you, facilities department, for our new mid-level sign. To our IT department, then changing out Chromebooks, to our transitional kindergarten. It can be very dynamic, different areas of discussion, but I just want the community to understand what we do in all different areas of this district, because it is, multifaceted. And many people have to make it work, and work together. And so it's really nice, like I said, I'm proud of the fact that I pride myself on covering everybody pretty equally. So that being said, the work I've done for also more social media, because again, the paradigm switched. I mean, it's not, traditional media is still there, but the bulk of people, as you can see just by the user numbers, is in social media. And so that's a nice thing to use these platforms. So I created the Ram Landing platform with Jill Hendricks, and she's now at 767 followers. When we launched her Facebook page, within a week, I remember it vividly, and I joked about this when she was awarded classified person of the year. Yes, yeah. I said she broke the internet. We posted about Ram Landing and introduced her page and said, Ram Landing. I remember the first sentence: Ram Landing, a safe place to land. 33,000 followers, just 33,000. I mean, that's bigger than SELA. So all glommed onto that Ram Landing page. And then she's had consistent followers ever since, which is really great, because, a lot of co-partners see that, like Northwest Harbit. I mean, partners that we need to sustain Ram Landing and for our families. So it's really cool. Child Nutrition started an Instagram account. They were a little behind the curve. Innovation Center started Twitter, that. I apologize. Transportation, we're in the middle of starting this on March 17th when I printed this out. However, Jamie and I paused, and we're going to do that for next year. This year, we just kind of want to wait it out, see how things go. But I thought it was really interesting that the website, going back to that for a moment, I was able to identify what were the top 10 pages that most of our community were going to. What were they looking at? And let's marry that with a social media account so they can see both. And so that'll be kind of like a synergistic effect, if you will, so they can understand, oh, okay, this is what's going on now. So let me go to the website and see what else they have under there. So going back to the website, the top 10 pages that are visited are our homepage. Our very first page is number 1. Number 2 is the staff page. Number 3 is child nutrition. Number 4 is the instructional calendar. Resources is number 5. Staff links is 6. Contact page is 7. News and updates. That's at the bottom where I was creating stories there. That's 8. Bus routes 9. Human resources 10. So those are the top 10 pages from the analytics that are visited on our website. So if I understand that, then I've got to make those pages really good. If those are the ones that are driving the people to go to it. Now, my dream is for everyone to go to every page, but again, I think it's just a work in progress, and it's kind of one of those, you just got to chip away at it. Because in the middle of doing all of that, I have other responsibilities, as you know, setting up for the board meetings, breaking down for the board meetings. There's, my goodness, website calendar and date entries. I've got 3 different working calendars. It's the family engagement calendar, which I created right underneath our district calendar. And that was actually Peter's idea about, what about the PTSA groups? And they have things that are going on too. How can we put that? How can we make that, work? I think that would be a really neat thing if we had a calendar. Absolutely. So we have a separate family engagement calendar that's different from our, district calendar. But then we also have Minerva's family engagement calendar. And then we also have the fine arts calendar. So I'm constantly, and then, putting these onto, thankfully I get the bulk of these done in the fall, but I am constantly, people are always emailing me, can you, we have this going on May 9th, everything comes up, or people schedule things differently. This is kind of just the foundation. I think, as we go into the year, and things are always changing, that's a running doc. But I'm also responsible for all of the district handbooks, the course catalogs, all school supply lists, instructional calendar, all departments, anybody who needs anything like transportation, the routes, the procedures, the policies. Pretty much responsible for all links requests. Anybody will email me. Anybody from Wendy Clark, on HiCap, can you take off that registration isn't December 3rd? Sure. ASU Online, I deal with Ashley Liebernick, she'll say, Gateways just sent me this. Can you put this, make it look nice? Sure. After the 5th, thing I've got to do in 30 minutes, sure. And I'm happy to do it. It really is nice. Early literacy, we got to change stuff like that all the time. The entire website is my responsibility, and I'm happy to do it. I gleefully, anybody that I've worked with, directors, principals, parapros, teachers, facilities, finance, anybody will tell you that I will gladly help out wherever I can, because I believe that if this is needed, then let's do it. Whatever you need, let's do it. For instance, the high school wanted their calendar was at the bottom. They wanted it at the top. They said it just makes more sense. They said people will click it there. Let's do it. Let's change it. Some things I can do lickety split. Some things require coding. I'm not trained in coding, but the field group is. And so oftentimes I'll have to call, if it's a coding issue, then I'll have to call. So will IT. For instance, I felt it was frustrating that you couldn't find somebody on our website. If I wanted to look up Joe Conley, there wasn't like an actual list, or an email or something like that. So to solve for that, we went to IT and they put up a contact. You go ask who you select who you want to send an email to, and then we'll send it to them. Well, they couldn't do that without the field group coding that in, because it's a code thing. It's embedded in there. It's so different than just putting up a link or a form or something like that. Excuse me. Like I said, the connection. The field group still assists me with the connection and the mailer. Again, as you can see from the packet, I don't know what I would do without them because there are so many responsibilities to this position. It is vast and it is fast and it is just, go, 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 go. And so they do assist me in those. We meet every Monday and we discuss story ideas and thoughts and who to spotlight, what department to spotlight. And then we go from there. Sometimes, thankfully, they'll bypass me and just go directly to the person and say, hey, Jack, we're writing a story about, facilities. Can you tell us a little about this? Or I will. I mean, it'll just depend on the workload for that particular moment. And we did increase, and the reason why they stayed on is because we increased the mailer instead of going once every quarter prior to me coming on board. Now it's once every other month. And so that distribution it requires assistance, but that really is my only staff support at all. So I appreciate it. I really do. YouTube channel. I have to create all of these live streams on a separate computer. I'll wrap it up. Excuse me.
Oh, you're good. Just give you a little reminder.
So YouTube, and then conventional media, I'll wrap it up. Emails, I always act as the middleman. Field calls, they're trying to get a hold of somebody instead. They're trying to get a hold of somebody in finance or Joe or whatever the case may be. And then all the community questions. I have an entirely separate email. I have a second email with WVSD Communications. So any concerns, inquiries, or questions, I have to kind of hunt down who I need to appropriate it to. Graphic design I do. And that's it. I just want to thank you all so much. It's been such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure meeting all of you. You are just such great people. So I appreciate the time and thank you.
Do you guys have any specific
questions?
For Amy?
I am so sorry it took a little longer.
No, you're good. You're good. I just want to make sure we get
everybody
an opportunity to ask some questions if they wanted to as well.
I have a quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
You go ahead.
All right, real quick. I've worked in this district I worked in this district quite a while, and it bothered me that people with a great deal of skills and potential and skill, I mean, not just potential, but skills, tended in the past to get burned out because we kept asking for more and more and more, and we burned them out. And it wasn't fair. It was just not right, but it was just the way, if you can get this, then I want to get them to do this too. And you're working about as hard as a person possibly can.
Thank you.
Do you need help? Is there something that maybe we could do to help you?
Thank
rather
you.
than asking you to do more with just what you have?
I really appreciate that, Dave. That's the first time I've been asked that actually since I started on the 21st.
Sure.
It would be great to get a marketing assistant at some point, but I appreciate that there are budget cuts coming down the pike, and so I don't foresee that happening. As a matter of fact, I would be surprised if that happened. So sure, I would love to have that, but I just don't foresee that happening. But yes, I do work nights, I work weekends, I work all the time.
Well, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Okay, Mark.
Okay, more of a comment and just one general question for you. First of all, thank you. It's very fine work, and I've been somebody on the board who has consistently spoke of, improving the website and increasing our use of it and trying to make it more readily available to our community. My real question is, I'm really pleased to see the maybe vast is too strong, but the increased utilization of the websites or the applications. How much are you able to determine how much of that is from outside of West Valley? I know the largest portion is West Valley. And the reason I bring that up is just an indicator of how much interest there is by other communities in West Valley. I mean, I know when my family, we were looking around for school districts to go to, one of the first things we did is went to the website to see what we could find out about West Valley. I know in my line of work, there are other people relocating to Yakima as well. I tell them to go to look at our website. So just curious if you track that at all or have any sense of it, even if you don't have official numbers.
I try to track it, yes, and I try to look at the analytics, and all it doesn't, it just says Yakima in the delineation of the data, or it'll say USA. It won't tell you specifically, West Valley, Yakima, but it doesn't tell you specifics like you were talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Very
Which-
difficult. Yeah. Okay. Well,
But
thank you.
I, like you, before I even had this position, would go onto the website as a civilian, if you will, when I was not working for the district. And I remember thinking to myself, I wish there was more. I wish there was more, and I just don't think it was I don't know what the answer is or why, but that's precisely the approach I took. Was a community member. How would I look at it? How would it be best? How, as a community member that I've been for years, how would it work for me? So that's how I approach it when I try to fix it, if you will, or rectify it, or add pages. We didn't even go over all of the pages I've added that needed to be added, like health services. We didn't have a health services page. So I talked to Alyssa Kidder and I called her and I said, we need to get a health services page here, because it's far different to have a page all dedicated to COVID. And then on the right-hand side, have things about meningococcal and HPV on our COVID page. I said, well, why don't we have immunizations and all of that stuff on a health services page? So I got with Alyssa Kidder, and she, there's constantly updating with DOH, Yakima Health Department. So let's do that. Seems smart. Let's do that. So it's things like that where you just got to figure what would be best, what's going to be functional, because it's great to look nice and look fun. Like I put the Twitter on our homepage. I put every single school's Facebook page on the front pages of the schools. So we did all that and it looks great. But my opinion is it's got to be functional. It's one thing to look nice. It's still got to work well for the user. And so, we didn't have any of that. We didn't have health services. We also employee assistance. We didn't have that page yet. And then when Joe got that all worked out, we threw that page up. That's our landing page, So things like that help our employees, help our community. It's important, so.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we are, if we're contracted with the field group, how often do we use them?
I just use them for the mailer and for the eye contact, the connection,
Are
and
we,
then for coding.
are we only contracted for that, or can we extend that contract where you can have a little bit of assistance?
Mark, yes.
So rather than hiring one person to be an assistant, we can rely more on them potentially?
Potentially, yes. I don't know if that will change their rate, because I know the contract is for those two. I've built such a good rapport with them that they do, like I said, throw up things for me, like the coding of the Twitter on the front page. So they'll do that. But I don't know if that price will change if I approach them and say, hey, look, I need you to do all the forms. I need Jamie to send all her transportation forms to you. You throw that up there and you do this. I'd rather save them, however, for more difficult tasks,
Right.
That I'm not trained for. That's what I'd like to keep them in my back pocket for, because even though it's tedious and time consuming, I can still do it without having to pay somebody else, because like I said, I would like to have them for, other things. But social media alone, you can hire a social media content creator full-time just to do social media. Then you can hire somebody full-time just to do communications. 2-hour late start due to professional development. What happened in Uvalde, all those communications, you have to be in the mindset of getting straight and hurt. You can't be rushed. It's got to, because that's the communication representing your district. You want it to be good. So, like I was saying, that you've got that bucket, and then you've got to market. You really do want to promote our Play and Learn, because it's important. I mean, these birth to 3 programs, they're very important early childhood education. So you want to constantly marketing and promoting that, and we're seeing the marketing is working. Our Play and Learns are packed now. We just actually created banners for each elementary school. I don't know if you've been in there where you've seen the banner of the principal and it says Play and Learn every Friday. We just put those in every elementary school to promote more Play and Learn. So anywhere we can promote the district that will pay dividends for our students' lifelong learning objective, we've done it. Goal, score. So when we market to bring people to these programs to be included, that's the best thing we can do. You know, it helps. It pays, like I said, pays dividends, and also pays dividends in building capital, social capital. We need that still in this community. We still need to build trust. We still need to, we can't rest on our laurels. We've got to continue the effort constantly that there's nothing nefarious. We're working hard the best we can do, and just continuously try to build that trust back.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Jack, you're up, buddy.
I want to start with just a kind of general overview of the facilities department, things you may know or may not know. The 2022-23 school year budget for our department was about $904,000. Thus far in the 2022-23 school year, we processed about 1,900 work orders, completed about 1,400 of those so far, with an additional 899 preventative maintenance orders that we worked over. We've also received approximately 1,200 facility use event requests. That's not a request itself. It may have multiple events in there. So about 9,000 events so far. We've approved about 8,500 of those. And with that, about 7,393 of them were community requested events. Now, again, that's not just one single request. Those are events under one request. The facility department currently has 52 full-time employees and 9 substitute custodians, of which 17 of them are facility staff, 35 are custodial staff, with 9 substitute custodians there as well. In the department, we have 1 director, 1 coordinator, and a secretary in our office. I have 2 carpenters, 1 electrician, 2 HVAC technicians, a locksmith, a plumber, irrigation specialist, warehouse person, and 6 grounds people in the department. We clean and maintain, support approximately 911,624 square feet of interior building space within the district's 10 schools, and that's including the portable classrooms as well. We also maintain and support about 35,342 additional square feet of building space within our other 4 buildings, which would be central office, facilities building, transportation, and the warehouse building. So we have a lot of square footage to keep up. Out in the fields, we currently irrigate and maintain and mow approximately 160 acres of lawn and field grass within the district. The district tradesmen, which would be my carpenters, electricians, HVAC technician, and plumber, work on and complete many of the district projects, which saves us time and money on projects and repairs. I need to slow up just a minute.
You're good, buddy. Doing great, Jack.
So my next topic would be the district-wide LED lighting upgrade. As of right now, all of the parking lots and exterior building lighting has been upgraded to LED lighting. Within the schools themselves, the high school, we've upgraded the main office lighting, the commons cafeteria lighting, the kitchen, and the weight room lights. At the junior high, the cafeteria, central kitchen, and the central kitchen offices have been completed. The junior high gym is next on the agenda. It'll be our next project. At the central office, we had upgraded all the interior lighting. Cottonwood Elementary, we've completed the gym lighting. The facilities department plan is to continue the district-wide upgrade of LED with the goal of completing the upgrade in the next 5 years. The estimated annual energy savings so far in the district is approximately $54,045. It's probably more than that, but that's the only thing that I could really come up with that I had hard information on. And here's the long list. Number 3 is the completed district facilities projects. Now, these aren't necessarily all projects completed in my department, just facilities in general throughout the district. And you may be aware of a lot of these already, but I'm going to name some of them off. The installation of the new and replacement drain field out of Tanum Elementary was completed on the 19th due to failure of the north drain field system. The south drain field system, there's two sides to it, was repaired in 2006. We had it inspected when we had the recent problem. It was determined that it was non-repairable, so we have put in a brand new pressurized drain field system. I think you guys are aware of that because you approved the project. Replacement of the Nob Hill water line, supplying Clayson Field concession stand due to a line breakage right after we turned it on this year. We got that work completed just in time to host the Ram landings the day before, so that worked out really well. We have new chain link, 6-foot chain link gates installed out at Mountain View Elementary on the front elevation. The gates will increase the school's playground security and student safety as requested by community members. We have added an additional 57-foot of chain link fence at Cottonwood, which closes the opening on the south side of the bus lane. The new fencing connects to the existing fence and will increase the playground security and student safety as requested by the principal, Michelle Sequenza. Additional storage at Apple Valley and Summit View Elementaries. You would think that brand new buildings had plenty of storage, but they didn't. So we've added 2 10x20, one at each building, 2 10x20 Old Hickory sheds were purchased and placed behind the school's garbage enclosures for additional storage as requested by the principals. I think they've already got them full. Removal of a large elm tree at Summit View Elementary due to a large broken limb hanging over the upper playground and walking track. After looking at the tree and getting some estimates, it was determined that it needed to be removed completely to secure safety for the students, staff, and community members that use the walking track. So we've just recently removed that tree. Unfortunately, the neighbors weren't able to do it, so we did due to safety. We recently completed, not us, but the district has recently completed the West Valley Innovation Center science room conversions. You're probably aware, but room 128 was converted from a science room to a welding shop. Room 126 was converted to a metal machining room. Room 122 was converted to a wood shop, and room 118 was upgraded to a clean room classroom. The West Valley Innovation Center students are utilizing the new rooms and equipment and are currently working on assigned projects. Some projects that we've completed last summer, we added 4 sets of aluminum bleachers down at the mid-level campus junior high baseball fields, number 1 and 2, which were greatly needed. Removal and replacement of the junior high sign. The old wooden sign was just not a good representation of the district. So I got a call from Peter, basically said remove the sign. So we got a new one put in there. It took a little while, but we did get it done. Another big repair, and most of these were at the junior high last year. The breezeway ceiling that connects the main building to the gymnasium was in very poor shape. We've redone that and painted it. We repainted the junior high's exterior metal siding. And I keep saying we have had it done. Those were contracted out. Repainted all the metal siding, including the courtyard metal siding panels. We removed and replaced the junior high school's deteriorated concrete between the main building and gymnasium building due to safety. It was cracked and spalled out really bad and needed to be addressed and was. And the replacement of the Nob Hill water line supplying the central office and warehouse. That line we had a large leak for quite a while. So we've had quite a bit of plumbing that we've repaired over the last, less than a year. Big projects, and I'm hoping we're done with those.
Have you guys walked down to the junior high breezeway? Have you been down there? Board members once?
No.
You guys
It
been down there? Have you
really
seen
looks
the
good.
concrete? I mean, it used to be like divots in there and everything else. It's
LED
yeah,
upgrade.
it's very
underneath.
nice.
It
It's
looks
very
really nice. It came out well. Some proposed district facility projects, installation of the new Mountain View freshwater well. Unfortunately, we only received 1 bid when we put it out to bid, and due to the cost of that bid, we made the decision to put it out to bid again.
Yeah, we're working through that piece of it. We didn't receive an official bid when we put out the bid for it.
Yeah.
We worked on the back end with a contractor. The biggest thing is hard to find drillers. Nobody really wants to drill or utilize some of the stuff that we had built in that proposal. So we're trying to work with HLA Engineering and some other folks in order to kind of see if there's some things that we can do to get a little bit more buy-in on this project. So it's not cheap by any means. I think our number that we placed on that that we've talked about regarding bond is pretty accurate. So I think
Yeah.
the number that I got was about $613,000 for a well. So we're trying to work through that, see if there's anything that we can do in order to accomplish that. But yeah, no, great work by Jack and his team on that piece of it as well.
Another few projects that are proposed, an additional portable classroom out at Mountain View Elementary. The district already owns the portable. It's being stored out at the West Valley Transportation Center field right now. We have 2 of them out there. Possibly adding an additional parking lot out at Mountain View in the southeast field area. We have a congestion problem out there during the morning drop-off and evening pickup, afternoon pickup. Same thing out at Tanum Elementary. We have a problem out there that it backs up almost all the way to Tanum Road. Replacement of the junior high gymnasium wood bleachers with new electric bleachers. Obviously, they'd be plastic and aluminum. The wood ones down there right now should be coming out when we can. Another big one, and then I'll get off of this proposals, but the repiping of the junior high itself, the water piping is pretty bad down there. The pipes are deteriorated, and we have a lot of failures with sinks and stuff due to it. And then my last subject would be that the facilities department is now assisting the athletics program on multiple sports projects. Before, just say my predecessor, we didn't do a whole lot to support the athletics department. They were kind of on their own. We're trying to work around that, be more cooperative, help out as much as we can. So a few things we've done and are doing with them. We formed and mounted new bases down at the mid-level campus baseball field 1 due to the base failures. Removal and replacement of the mid-level campus field wind screening around the perimeter of the baseball, softball, and soccer fields. Was weathered and just flapping and looking horrible. We haven't got it completely done, but we've got a good start on that one. It'll be finished this summer. Fabrication of the West Valley High School Athletics ordered replacement pole vault standard and its installation at Clayson Field for use at the district track meets. This was another thing we got done just in time for the West Valley annual Ram relays. So they got to use the new pole vault pit. And then we also have agreed to work with the West Valley High School and relocation of the in-play bullpen pens that we have right now. The bullpens will be placed outside the field of play, which will increase the player's safety as requested by the high school athletics department. I know that was quite quick. Questions, would be happy to answer them.
I had a friend, not anymore, from Yakima, and they cannot get into Yakima elementary fields to walk because the gates are all locked.
Mm-hmm.
Do we do that?
We don't.
Okay, that's what I told them.
We try to leave at least one man gate open at every school, every facility, at least until dark. White Hollow, I have them locking the gate after dark just because we've had problems with kids or whoever getting back there and messing with stuff. But no, we do not, especially at the locations where we have walking tracks. If you go to Summit View right now, you can get on the track. If you go to White Hollow, you can get on the track. If you come after dark, there's 50-50 shot that it's locked. But we try not to keep the community out.
Okay.
Sometimes we have to, like during the summer, we like to close down the football field for about a month, let it, rejuvenate. And to do that, we have to shut down the track too, because every time you let somebody out there, they go and walk across. So other than that, no, we try to leave the facilities accessible to the community unless we have an ongoing issue of vandalism or something, and then we'll address that as needed.
Someday we're going to have a new football track, soccer field, and it's going to be all weather. Eisenhower's field is locked all the time. People cannot get on. Are we going to do the same thing as Eisenhower?
I cannot guarantee you that we won't have to do that with the kind of investment that we're going to make, but our goal will be not to do that if at all possible. I mean, it should be for community usage. And I think we're a little bit different than Eisenhower. I'm pretty sure if you left that gate open, you're going to get vandalism every night. I don't think that it's quite that way out here. So it'll be something that I visit with Joe and maybe possibly even the board with before we make that decision. But I would have to say, no, our anticipation is not to have a locked facility.
Or at least give people a chance?
Yes, and if we do lock it, it'll be at night. If we don't have problems during the day, before it gets dark, then I don't see a need to do it. If we start having problems, then we'll address that and accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple things that are related. During basketball season, during the wintertime, we had some issues with some of our community members, younger kids teams trying to get gym access for AAU and whatnot, and they were running into outside communities. I had heard other cities in the surrounding area have groups coming in and getting times. Other sports and in soccer was using our facilities inside when basketball teams couldn't use it. For-profit groups were coming in and getting bulks of time where our teams will not be able to use that. Are we looking at a policy that will possibly allow our groups to sign up first, maybe for a period of time, and then the other groups from the surrounding areas can come in?
Yes, we are. So to start off with, we are now requiring rosters. And we have to have at least 2 players in district before you get to use our gyms on first serve basis. So yes, the community teams out here that are all West Valley, they're coming in first. We still process all the facility use in the order that they're put in. But if you put in a request and your team is all from Wapato, you're put to the bottom of the list. Now this year, obviously you had a new coordinator, you had a new director. It didn't go exactly as planned. We got a lot of people in, but we actually got too many and didn't really. At that time, we've never had a problem, Mark, with overbooking the gyms. When I was the coordinator, and it has nothing to do with the coordinator, we weren't getting the requests that we've got since COVID has released. Everybody wants to use the gyms now. Everybody wants to use the facilities. When I was the coordinator, I was able to get everybody in, even if they weren't from our community.
Right.
And we never had a real problem with it. But this year it did become a problem. It was obvious we had a problem and we addressed it the best we could, as quick as we could. But moving forward, we'll keep requiring rosters. West Valley community members are first on the list. If you're not from our community, we're not telling you can't use our facilities, but you're going to get put down the list until we get all of our people put in, all of our teams put in.
And other sports using the facility. Now, this is probably a little more personal because I live in a gym every day. And those are the classrooms of our teachers. And there are classroom materials being torn off of the walls. There's the whiteboards are being erased where the teachers have information that needs to stay on there by these community groups. Soccer balls are being kicked in the gyms against I can think of Cottonwood with the stage into those walls. Again, it was because of circumstance, but Little League baseball tryouts were held in Cottonwood's gym and the hard balls were hitting the floor and bats were hitting the floor. So again, as a PE teacher, that struck a chord with me. So maybe I don't know how we police that or how we enforce that with those groups, but there's some frustration with our teachers that are living in those spaces because of what's going on.
And that's understandable. Just to address the soccer and the baseball, we do have a special agreement that we send out to all those requests when they put in a request that tells them they can't use hard balls, they can't use bats, no kicking, drills only, and they sign that and give it back to us. The problem is exactly what you said, the policing. We don't. I don't go out into the gyms and police the gyms, neither does Blake. But what we do, if we get a report, we will follow up on it. And the first one is, okay, we've got a report. You've been warned. The next time you're going to lose time. If it happens again, third time you're out. So we haven't got to that point with anybody yet. And I was kind of, to go back to Little League, I was pretty disappointed when I found out after the fact that they had done that, because they did sign the agreement and they've signed it many years in the past. So we do have something in play, but if it becomes much more of an issue, we're going to need to police it. And as far as different sports during, let's say, the winter, when it should be basketball, we're working on that as well. We want to accommodate as much as we can, as you know, but basketball season's basketball season and volleyball season's volleyball, and soccer realistically is an outside sport.
Basketball never ends. either.
So
Right.
we still allow them in
And
and we
soccer's
give
not.
them the special use.
Right.
But unless we hear from somebody that they're not following it, we honestly don't know.
Is there,
I don't have time to go out and police every, gym.
is there a way you want that reported?
Just an email
Okay.
or a call. That's the way it's been. Some coaches, I would say maybe you're throwing each other under the bus, but a lot of them are legit. But either way, if we get a report, we follow up on
Okay.
it.
Do you follow up on it, or does a custodian in the building follow up on it?
Well, here's the way that works. The custodian in the building is asked to at least go to the organization, find out who it is, get us a name, and then they report it to us. We don't really ask them to police other than that, unless there's somebody in the gym that doesn't have a facility use request, then they're asked to leave.
Okay.
That's the only time we ask the custodians to basically ask somebody to leave. Otherwise, they just get us some information and we follow up on that.
Good, because I've had custodians in a bad situation at times.
Yeah, no, I don't want to put our custodians in that situation. And I've told them all, if you go up to a coach or a community member and there's any kind of aggression, just drop it. Just walk away. It's not that big of a deal. I'll figure out who it is and we'll take it from there.
Hey, thanks, Jack. I want to make sure I give Sheila a little
Yes.
bit of time here. I
Excuse
know
me.
everybody's
I do
favorite
have a-
topic.
I do have a question. I was trying to
You
be
can
courteous and
you
let.
can override me all day.
That's all right. Just a quick question for you, Jack. And by the way, I appreciate especially the attention to some of the athletics. As my colleagues here on the board know, I've been somebody pretty outspoken about kicking the can down the road and not taking care of our athletics in our school district. So I applaud you for that. In addition to all the other things, that's a phenomenal list of things that have been accomplished over the past year for our facility. So my strong support and appreciation for the job you've done in that. And I know you've come into a new role. And so to see that done in the short time you've been there is just very much appreciated and recognized. My one question for you is, one of the things I saw on the list while I was reviewing the information were new bleachers. And I think you made a reference to putting in new bleachers in one of the schools. I just wanted to make sure that we are putting safety rails on those, because some of the bleachers we have do not have that. And I think as we move forward, safety has to be a part of this whole process. So if there's any consideration of that, I just want to make sure you give that some thought and try to include it.
Definitely will. And that's one of the main reasons that the bleachers are in there need to come out. They don't have this, they have the safety rails on the end. They don't have any rails going up the aisles. They're just not safe anymore.
Not ideal.
The new bleachers all are code compliant, and
Okay.
safety is a key issue in all the new bleachers.
Okay. And in addition to that, I just want to make sure that there's ADA consideration. I think we're required to do that as well,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, okay.
And we will be.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mike.
All right, Sheila, fire away.
Good evening. No worries. I can talk fast. I thought I would start off on the finance department. We have a pretty small group. We have an awesome group, just so that you know. We have a director of finance and an accounting and grant claim manager, an accounting tech, payroll specialist, and an accounts payable person. I didn't want to list out all of our responsibilities because there's just too many. But I did want you to know that our main focus is we are a district support department. So we spend a lot of our day helping the other buildings, putting out fires, as we say, answering questions, solving problems, and we do a good job at it. To give you an idea of the volume that we do, I wanted to let you know, I took the 2021-22 school year. Just in purchase orders issued, it was over 2,000. And just so that you know, we look at every single one. We don't just approve it. We open it up, we look at the quotes, we look to see if the account codes are correct, we look to see if the vendor's okay, we look to see what kind of funding is there. So there's a lot to that process. It's not just a rubber stamp of approval. For invoices paid, we've paid over 11,000 invoices in 1 year, which is a lot of review, a lot of approvals, a lot of time goes into that. We have 46 procurement cards, which we have to monitor for the paperwork, the approvals, continued maintenance of the vendor website. There's a lot to it. And the credit cards are a little bit tricky because we don't know what they're purchasing until it's done. So we have to really monitor those, especially for federal purchases. And then the average staff payroll deposits processed monthly is over 800. So just to give you an idea of the volume that we do. And those are just a few things that we do. Just want to make that clear. We do lots of other things. One of the big things that has really increased in the finance department are grants, and that's a result of COVID, obviously. In 2016-17, we had 8 state grants. We now have 22. We had 9 federal, and we now have 25. So I'm very fortunate. I have a staff member that's wonderful at grants. She's very, very knowledgeable, and I'm very appreciative that I have that because that's become a much bigger part of what we do. The grant challenges are the district has experienced an increase. Grant funding has various restrictions such as time and effort. It has supplanting and unallowable expenditures, which are written within each grant. So each grant could be different of what is allowed. So we have to monitor them, we have to track them, and we have to, some of them require claim processing. So we have different websites we have to log into and request claims for reimbursement. Federal grants are reported to OSPI annually. It's called the Schedule of Federal Awards and is audited for compliance every year. And that's really important that that's done correctly and we do that job. And traditionally grants were allocated to one specific department, but with the expansion of these grants, now we have other departments getting grants that are not knowledgeable about federal grants and the requirements. So we have to step in and assist with that, help them monitor, make sure they're compliant, make sure they understand the bid requirements are different. So there's a lot more to it. Also, in the past, grants were awarded for 1 year and they now can expand for multiple years. And that was due to COVID, which creates additional reconciling issues. Another big hurdle for the finance department is every year the state will give us new accounting requirements, not realizing that it's a little more difficult to make it happen. And that's where we step in and have to make different things happen. One of them was the subfund, and I'm sure you're familiar where we have to say this is what we're collecting in local monies. And now we have to break that out on our financial statements and show what did you spend that on. That was new. We didn't used to have to do that. So that was a new requirement. Activity 34, that is a professional development requirement by the state where they started saying, if we gave you 3 days of professional development for your certificated staff, we want you to separate it out on a financial statement. And we also are going to allocate, like 1 day is going to be a specific training. So they audit us to that as part of our audit now. And we have to provide support and documentation, rosters, a lot to it. Really, there is. And then another one was House Bill 1660, which I think we've talked about before, which that impacted some student waivers for different fees associated with extracurricular activities. And it's also based on free and reduced meals, but that is a HIPAA compliance issue. So making that happen was very difficult. We have done it, but it took some time and some real thought into that process of how do you waive a fee for a student, but not let anyone know that it's been waived. Tricky. They also added expense by building, which we did not used to have to do, and we now do. So not for everything, but as much as possible. So that was another challenge that we had to do. They also added class size requirements. They added, capital leases is one that they just added that we have to account for all of our capital leases. But instead of saying, let's start as of today, they said you have to review all your prior leases, which could go back 5 years, and identify them. And you really have to do a whole calculation, like a lease calculation, find the interest rate, find the contract, find the terms. So it sounded like something very simple became very complex. And of course, we are audited to that. And now they have added IT leases for subscription-based. That's what I'm currently working on this year. It's a new requirement. So that's our latest. And I'm sure there's more to follow. And then I thought I'd go over some of the softwares that we use. Some of these we manage and some of these we are just software users, but it is a lot of our day. So for instance, if Infinite Visions is our finance and payroll, and the secretaries, principals use it, admin uses it, I use it, the whole finance department, HR uses it. We do a lot with security in that database. We use InTouch Receipting as a cash receipting for local payments. We also, as we manage that, finance does. Talent Ed is used basically by HR, but we do approve different things using that system. Informed K-12 is also for internal forms. We don't manage, or actually our department does manage that site. We have one person that manages it, but we use it all the time. We approve things within that site. ASOP is the employee lead for professional development, and then FileMaker Pro is for transportation. So we have our hands in a lot of different softwares that some we're managing, some we're not, but there's a lot to it. And that was all I had. Any questions for me?
Do you monitor the ESSER funds?
We do. We absolutely do. We know exactly where we're at.
Yes,
Do we not, Joe?
we do.
We do.
So we're pretty proud. We're in the midst of our audit as it stands now. And obviously ESSER 1, 2, and 3 were all part of this audit process, which was pretty extensive. And I'm proud to report we did very, 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 very well with our accounting, with our practices and everything else. So that's a lot of kudos to Sheila and her team in the work that they've done on the back end, because she's underselling as far as what these are just words, but on the back end, the amount of accounts, the amount of reports you have to create and sub counts and sub reports and everything else. It's much more complicated than your typical P&L and some of your standard general accounting practices that you're used to. This is a much more in-depth process, but I'm extremely proud of what Sheila has done and proud of what we accomplished and what we use our ESSER funds for. And there was a number of findings across the state and when it comes to ESSER funds. So
Have we spent any money on our track with ESSER funds yet?
we have not.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
I don't even know how to laugh at that. I have. So,
Yes.
okay. All right. Well, I think we're pretty close. Is there any other questions for Sheila? All right. Are you gonna end? You can end it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Concludes
all
our-
three
Thank you.
for coming in tonight. We've got about 1 minute left until 7.
You want to take a little bit break? We probably start at like 7:05.
7:05. We're going to start at 7:05. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Ready? Okay. All right, ready to start our regular meeting. Call the meeting to order, and we'll do the flag salute again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Dave, I'd like to move that we excuse Mr. Thorner from
Great.
tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right. Do we have to vote on that?
No, second.
Okay. All right. Changes in the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
All right. Communications?
We had a response to public comment. I think that's written down, so nothing to add there. And then we have staff retirement recognition. So we have 4 people retiring: Larry Ellis, Lisa Petrie, Greg Porter, and Tim Sorensen. And I believe Tim Sorensen and Lisa are here. Is that correct? All right. Lisa is a first grade teacher at Cottonwood. She was hired on 8/28/19. She was hired 8/28/1992. 31 years of service in West Valley. So, Lisa, do you want to come on up? Hi, Lisa. That's for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your service. Appreciate it.
Well, it's been an awesome 31 years. It's a great district to work for. Worked for some awesome principals. Michelle and Stacy here. My other 2 are not here, but I can't say enough wonderful things about West Valley. So
Well, we appreciate it.
Appreciate
Dr.
it very
Finch, sorry he wasn't here. He's on his way, but he's a little bit running late, so unfortunately you have to have me tonight, so.
that's okay. I actually taught one of Peter's kids.
There you go. Thank you. All right. And we have Tim Sorensen. He's a shop teacher at the IC. He was hired 3/24/2014, 9 years of service in West Valley. Thanks, Tim. Very much appreciated. Good luck. Have fun.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you.
I know Russ will miss you, right?
I've been blessed to work with probably the best school district in the state.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, and I just want to make sure Greg Porter's not here or Larry Ellis, correct? But I'm gonna read off the same thing so everybody knows. Greg Porter, he's a teacher at Atanum. He was hired 4/26/1993. 30 years of service in West Valley. So, Greg, thank you so much. And Larry Ellis, he's a head custodian at Cottonwood. Hired date 6/3/1996. 27 years of service in West Valley. So, thank you, Larry. And I'll make sure that you guys get those. So, thank you.
You know, there's one other one on here
Is there?
that isn't mentioned, who is my old custodian at middle school. Robin Sills is retiring. Robin was with me at the middle school, and then he had the audacity to go to the new high school. Being the first head custodian at a new high school is really a crazy job. And I think he ended up back at the middle school, but he is retiring too.
Wow. Good deal.
All right. Emergency school closure waiver.
Yes, so this is just informative communication. We had I'm assuming a lot of people in Atanum know that this happened. There was a Nob Hill water mainline break into the entire Wiley City. So unfortunately, we had to shut down Atanum Valley Elementary for 1 day. So we have to fill out this emergency closure waiver because we're unable to meet the 180 days and we don't want to extend that. So we just want to make sure we communicate that with you guys as well.
But they still have made up the amount of hours.
Correct.
necessary.
That's correct. That is correct.
All right, number 6, program presentation, special education.
Mr. Jager, just a point of clarification here, and maybe another board member or former president might know, but I always thought that when a board member was absent, we actually voted on that. I heard there was a motion made to excuse him, and so there should be an action taken to vote on that, I believe.
Okay.
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
All right.
I can't correct you because I don't know, so we'll go with that.
I'm not 100% sure, but we've always done that.
Obviously, I'm doing a wonderful job in the
So
in
that
place
is,
of Peter Finch here.
0 for 1.
Yeah, 0 for 1 already,
Uh,
but we can do that. We can.
Well, you make your motion again, Mark.
I think Mr. Moko was going to do that.
I did. I moved that we excuse Mr. Thorner from tonight's meeting.
All right, then we need a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There. Now we're even.
Perfect. We took
Thank
care
you.
of that. Good job. All right.
Okay, now, program presentation. Luke Jagger? Lucas?
Mr. Jager, I've been asked that you guys move to the other side of the.
All right.
Could my group come up here with me? All right. So I did submit a board report, with just some basic numbers. Actually, before I get to that, I just want to say congratulations to Lisa and to Tim. I've known both of you guys for a long time. Amazing educators. Same with Greg and Larry, who aren't here. Greg was actually my Boy Scout leader when I was a child, like 5 years ago. Yeah. But again, thanks for having us here tonight. Yeah, I've submitted a board report. I'm not going to go over this tonight. It's got data. It's got numbers on how many students we have in IEPs, how much staff we have for special education. But I believe that's available to the public on the website. If you guys have questions on that, we'll definitely answer those at the conclusion of the presentation. I just want to let you know I'm not going over that in our presentation tonight. So in my 9 years of being the special ed director of the district, one thing I've learned is to always sort of surround myself with people who are smarter and more talented than I am. So that's why you see these 6 people up here. They're going to do the presentation. I'm just going to kind of do the intro and the wrap up. Yeah, and you're also going to notice that we have general education folks up here with us, and that is because we're really understanding that students on IEPs, they're not my students and they're not their students. They're all of our students. And inclusion and equity and the educating of just all of our students. It's not a special ed thing. It's not a general education thing. It's an everyone thing. And we're all working together on that. And so you're going to see that tonight, the collaboration between general education and special education as we improve educational outcomes for all students. Yeah, so with that, I am going to start this presentation. So we're going to talk about the Inclusionary Practices Project first. Our district vision for inclusion is provide access for all students to content, peers, and opportunities in an inclusive environment. Further, provide a continuum of services that best fits the needs of all students.
Is that okay? All right. So this Inclusionary Practices Project, we've been involved in this project for 3 or 4 years. It's through WASA, and the school board members actually were involved in some Zoom sessions early on in the year. When we think about this to kind of move along with our vision, Katie Novak, who is a big leader in what's known as Universal Design for Learning, speaks to 2 things. That all students should have access to the general education curriculum to the greatest extent possible, and that all teachers are equipped to meet the needs of all students. These are the goals that we're constantly striving for. We are not there yet, but we are constantly striving to move that direction. And so our district leadership team right now, part of this Inclusionary Practice Project, it consists of, I'm going to stand up because otherwise my neck's going to hurt. It consists of Stacy Drake, Josh McKimmey, Kimber Henning, Kristen Williams, myself, Lucas Jager, and Michelle Sequenza. So what we have involved in there is gen ed representation, special education representation, admin representation, and central office representation. And so what we've been tasked to do is really come up with an impact question to drive our inclusionary practices. And so our impact question is, how does empowering buildings to lead MTSS implementation and inclusive practices impact the social, emotional, behavioral, and academic outcomes of all students? And so as we're doing our research and as we're really constructing our inclusionary practices, that's at the forefront of what we're doing. And consequently, what we come up with is what's known as an impact study. And so our impact study really is focused on what are the outcomes that we're wanting from being inclusionary, and what are the outputs that are going to get us there. And so we're not just saying we're going to be inclusionary and we're going to get kids into classrooms and that's good enough, but we want to say, are we putting the systems in place that are going to make kids successful when we're more inclusionary? Got it for you? Got it. Okay. So when you do something like this, one of the things that you need to have in place is a theory of action. In other words, it's kind of an if-then statement. And so our if-then statement is very wordy. And so if there's any, Mrs. Petrie, don't judge the run-on sentence that's about to happen, okay? So if we implement a multi-tiered system of support with clear indicators of academic support, behavioral systems, and social emotional learning that are consistently assessed for fidelity, develop building-led professional development with a foundation in universal design for learning, and build a culture of equity and access, all while ensuring that the above is developed within a financially sustainable model. You'll like that, Joe. Then we will reach our vision of student success. And so that's our if then. So if we do these things, then we will see student success in the classroom. And so the outcomes that we're looking towards is, as far as what are our indicators to show that inclusionary practices are working. And so we're going to be constantly looking at it in regards to data. Number one is LRE shift. In other words, least restrictive environment. Are we having more students in this 80 to 100% range where they're with their gen ed peers more frequently than not? Reduction in special education referrals. In other words, do we have the systems in place that we see less students being referred for special education, that there's systems in place to try and cut that off and just make sure that the students who truly need special education are getting it? Increased growth in reading and math is evidenced by iReady data. So by being more included with their gen ed peers, are we seeing those students achieve at a higher level? Increased sense of belonging, and that's a data set that was addressed in a survey that just came out in the district. Reduction of dropout rate for students on IEPs. And so we want to see that more of our students who are in special education finish all the way through. Reducing the gap on the SBAC. In other words, what's the disparity between our students with IEPs and our students not on IEPs? Can we close that gap up? Lower discipline rates for students at IEPs. Can we see our students going to the office less frequently? And then increased attendance rates for students on IEPs. Can we see them attending school more often, which then is going to help them in the long run? And so here's our current data that we're looking at. And there are some pieces of data that we're still collecting. So this is a little bit incomplete, and I'll explain that in a second. But first thing that we're looking at is our discipline rate. Currently, students with disabilities, and there's a description of what the discipline rate, and this is measured by OSPI on their report card. Currently, students with disabilities have a 7.5% discipline rate, where our students without disabilities have a 3.2%. So what we're looking to do is to narrow that gap down. And then what percent of students are excluded in response to a behavioral violation? And here's the trend that we currently have. And again, what we're trying to do is trying to make that a trend where we see students with IEPs facing discipline less often, and not just but because we have systems in place that are causing them to misbehave less. Graduation rate. Again, we're trying to increase the graduation for our students on IEPs. By being inclusionary, we think that will happen. And so here's our current trend rate with that as well. And we see some ups and downs. And of course, COVID had a huge impact on that, both positive and negatively. And so here's our current graduation data. As you guys can see, in 21, 22, as far as all students, we had an 81% graduation rate. Students without IEPs had an 84% graduation rate. Students with IEPs had a 62% graduation rate. And then we also look at data like continuing. Are they continuing on because students can be in school until they're 21, or are they just dropping out? And we would like those first two columns to be where our students are at. And really, we would like to see 0% on dropout.
The 62% graduation rate is the highest we've had since before 2012.
Okay. Here's our current disparities in regards to the SBAC. As you can see, Science, 18% as far as students with disabilities, 46% in regards to students who have passed the SBAC. ELA, 59% versus 20%. And then math, 49% versus 19%. Again, we're going to be consistently looking at that data and seeing if our inclusionary practices can help improve that data. And then attendance rate, as we know, if kids don't attend school, we can't teach them. And so we want to make sure that kids feel a sense of belonging so we can get them here to school and get them educated, and especially our students with disabilities. And so that's our current trend right now. And again, we're hoping to increase attendance rates. Okay, so here we go. And here's Kimber.
So Kristen and I just joined this group this year, and one of our roles is to implement professional development around inclusionary practices. But our district has already done a lot of things, made several steps toward this. And the first is Lucas and Kevin visited all of the schools in the fall of last year and just talked to staff and to principals about what inclusionary practices were already in place and what did they need to do to continue the process. So that was kind of the first step.
And additionally, each school, each principal was given an inclusionary rubric, and that enabled the teachers and the principals to kind of self-reflect and see where they were on the continuum and think ahead to changes that they wanted to see for their building. We also were able to visit multiple sites. I was fortunate to visit McMicken and Ruby Bridges on the west side, and some secondary staff were also able to visit Chase Middle School and Seaholm High School. And so we were able to see some inclusionary UDL programs already in place that were, a few years ahead of where we are right now. One other progress we have made is that every student right now has a place on a general education roster. So whether they are in a DLC self-contained classroom, in a program where they have push-out model, a pull-out model, they are receiving a spot on a general education roster.
And approach for meeting all of the students' needs is through co-teaching. And several of our staff have attended trainings in the spring of 2022 and in the fall of 2022 to be trained in co-teaching. And you're going to hear from one group tonight, but at the high school, we have some of those who are doing some limited partnerships in co-teaching. And that's also happening at the mid-level campus in 4 different classrooms, in 2 ELA and 2 math classrooms. And it looks different in all of them. They're kind of tailoring it according to the needs of their students.
Additionally, this last fall, all West Valley staff participated in 2 days of UDL training in August and September. So that was kind of the introduction of the program and process to our entire staff.
And then lastly, behavior specialists have been added at the mid-level campus, and there are also staff at all of the elementaries.
Okay, so that's what we've done. And then moving forward, our proposed outputs, we want to continue to work with our superintendents to identify inclusionary practice outputs tailored to fit the needs of each school. We know that every school and district is unique. Each of the schools has their own programs that are working for them currently, and we just want to help each school move forward and continue to grow in those practices.
And then as a part of that, just building the capacity of our staff to use those behavioral supports as part of the MTSS systems in their buildings, which is also going to look different because every building is so very different.
This is getting funny, passing back. This is my last pass. And the principals and instructional coaches are currently working on plans to develop more professional development, again, to fit the unique needs of each school. Every school is developing their BDOT time and any other professional development that they feel can move them forward in this process.
And then finally, the special education department is working closely with their staff to create inclusive IEPs with the help of the Gen Ed staff so that those goals really align with the standards that they're working on in the classroom.
And so that's the project, and that's kind of the plan for next year. So it kind of just lines out the goals of what we're looking for in regards to becoming more inclusionary in the West Valley School District. But we brought in Erica Daly and Ashley Silva, who are math teachers up at the high school, also featured in the 39 under 39 in the Yakima Herald. They also presented to our SPED directors in the ESD 105 recently. And they've been rock stars in regards to really modeling co-teaching practices at the high school. And so we wanted to give them an opportunity to talk about what they're doing and how they're implementing inclusionary practices at the high school.
Are we gonna sit? You wanna sit? Stand? Okay. Let's go anywhere. Okay. So I'm Erica Daly, math teacher here at the high school. And Ashley and I were invited this previous spring, last spring, to go visit Seaholm High School in Bellingham, Washington, to watch and get to interact with staff members in a building where co-teaching has been implemented and is the primary focus. So we watched multiple math classrooms, and both of us walked away feeling very empowered. We weren't necessarily teamed with each other, but we both left that training very optimistic. And so we were paired, and I think, thanks. I'll just, okay. So I think one of the biggest reasons that we've had any level of success is that we both walked in with a willingness to commit to the process. And in the beginning, I think we had this idea of what was going to need to be focused on, and I think we thought it was going to be align our syllabus, make it seem like we are both the general education teachers for all students. No difference between us. We both stand at the door every single day between every single class period, greeting every single student. Just little nuts and bolts like that, I think we thought was going to be the primary focus of our attention in the beginning. Getting to know each other, kind of compare our philosophies and go over classroom routines. And then all these students showed up and it kind of evolved into.
So awkward. Yeah, so fine-tuning what we thought would be important things like classroom routines, like how are people going to check out to go to the bathroom, which turned out to be an event in itself because they play mom and dad when you have two teachers in the classroom. But those ended up not being super important at all. What we found to be the key components that we had to focus on were things like planning time. Like I cannot emphasize how important planning time has been for us, or reflective conversations daily. We have been fortunate enough to have 3 different periods that we co-teach together, and they happen to be consecutive periods. So we get to plan in between, just within passing periods. We also have our lunch that we plan together. So those reflective conversations every single day have been really important that we utilize, and the very, very like meticulously specific lesson planning, just being really intentional about everything that we do, like grading, really specific feedback for both each other and students, and then the roles in the classroom, and that very, very specific roles of who's doing what.
That leads us into what has our co-planning evolved into. So one of the first things that we do when we consider things is identify specifically which of the six models of teaching, co-teaching that we're going to use. So, and then we also kind of put an emphasis on which one should we be using the most frequently and which one have we been using the most frequency. So our, most comfort levels fall, I know it's kind of hard to see, but fall on the bottom 2, which is one person teaches and the other one assists, or one is teaching, one's observing, one's giving kids feedback, one's, so that's just kind of a really easy thing to fall back into. So we are really intentional about looking at how many days
this past week or this past month have we done that. We need to make sure that we're going back to some of these other ones that work better. And really just looking at what is the goal of this lesson, which of the models is going to get us there in the best way possible, which ones will maximize student engagement, and which ones will maximize the benefit of having 2 certified teachers in the room. So with 25 kids, 2 certified teachers, that's a lot of money for a 25 kid classroom to be. So we just kind of feel like we needed to maximize that. If the district's going to put the money out for us to try this model and make this important, are we doing everything we can to maximize that? So
And one person watching isn't doing that.
one person watching or one person answering questions, student questions, is not doing that. So
It's part 1 of co-planning. Part 2, establishing your co-teaching model is like the first component of doing that. Once you figure out what your co-teaching model is, then we start discussing roles. And there's so many different components to roles. It's not just, okay, now we know what kind of co-teaching model we're doing. We have to figure out who's doing what. And there's so many parts of who's doing what. It goes back to like school of it when we were getting our teaching degrees, where it's like, here's all of the things you need for your lesson plan. What materials do you need? Who's making the materials? Like, who's making copies? If we don't sit and make a sticky note of who's making copies for the day, we might not have any copies for that lesson, or we might have 2 sets of 90 copies, and then we have 180 copies of our materials for the day. There's so many different small things that we have to take into consideration. Or who's taking attendance for the day? Attendance might not get taken, or we might try to log into Skyward at the same time and then get aired out, and we're both like clicking on the computer at the same time fighting to log into Skyward because we're both doing it. Who's running the entry tasks? Then we're doing this awkward dance at the screen trying to like, are you doing it? Are you doing it? Are you doing it? The kids are wondering why we're pointing at each other. So it's like, meticulously specific, and it takes a lot of time and investment to plan all of these small things. How are students transitioning when we're doing parallel groupings, if we're going to swap groups, or if we're doing rotations, if we're doing student groupings, how are we grouping students? Who's compatible with who? What's the goal of what we're teaching? There's just a lot of different components and a lot of time invested in that planning.
and the way that we group students varies all the time and is never based on flagged for services type of grouping. So it is always based on us being reflective, looking at how well kids did. What did you observe? What did I observe? Who needs what? And let's place them accordingly. And that is often what determines whether we do 4 small groups or 2, half groups, just depending on who needs what. So just can't put enough emphasis on how valuable our co-planning time has been. We have a common prep period, and when we realized that's not enough, and we asked the district to give us a day to just sit and go through what we now know we need, they just were so supportive. And I think that's also played a huge role in why there's any level of success. So. All right. And this is just kind of the evolution of what we've done. So this year has kind of just been a piecemealing things together, figuring out what works and then changing it. So we have developed an evolved grading policy that's based on both of our values. That was something that took a long time to hammer out. We had to really be self-aware. And a huge part of that was us becoming comfortable with each other and getting to know each other and making sure we were safe with the other person to say, hey, you keep taking over. Can you, remember I was supposed to do that? Or, things like that. We're very reflective, and we always kind of assume best intent with each other. And it's just very safe and open.
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
Are we done? Sure. I wanted to point out on that rubric, that's a student, or I guess collective rubric. So you want to call it?
Sure.
Do you have a fancier word for that?
Nope, that's it.
But that's the rubric that we use in the classroom that we wanted students just to focus on being a better math student rather than just always focusing on the right answer. And so that was one that we created as a classroom. So it's just one of the things that we decided to focus more on in the classroom. So just last slide, we're almost done. Things that we felt like were big wins for us and that just made us feel good and happy. Students feeling comfortable taking risks and making big mistakes in front of others. I love when the kids will write something and they're like, I messed up, but they're okay with it and they're like happy to mess up and then keep going, or they're pointing out each other's mistakes, but not in a way to put somebody down, but they're pointing out and saying, oh no, you messed up. This is how you do it. So it's turning into like peer mentoring in the classroom. And I love seeing that. I think that's really cool.
We also right now, because this is so new, we have a lot of students who have historically not seen success in math. And so this was just one of the quotes we heard this year was a student said out loud that this is the first math class I've ever passed. And it's grade level content.
And we've had quite a few students coming in before and after school, not just to get their grade up. A lot of them are passing the class. They just wanted to understand the content better, which I think is pretty neat. And then when we sent out a Google Sheet for what classes they wanted to take next year for math, they're electing to take co-teach math again next year.
Hearing that math is their favorite subject or they love math in a classroom that is filled with students who haven't ever felt a strong level of success with it is really big. And then, okay. And then, like I said, the other big win is just Ashley and I really getting to know each other and kind of growing into this place where there's just a lot of trust and safety in our partnership. So we don't know what the numbers will look like yet data-wise, but our big wins and visible signs of success have been students' willingness to show up and come to math class. We have students who historically failed math classes due to chronic absences who are showing up every day. So even if the numbers aren't showing it right now, we are seeing big wins on a day-to-day basis with students.
All right, so that concludes our presentation. Probably should have done this at the beginning, but this is Kevin Brennan. He's the special education coordinator. Sorry, I'm Kimber, middle level instructional teacher, right? Instructional coach. I'm forgetting everybody's name. Kristen Williams, elementary instructional coach. Ashley Silva is a high school special education teacher. Erica Daly is the high school math teacher. And I'm Lucas Jager, director of special education. So with that, any questions? I apologize to you guys.
I have a question for the math teachers.
Mark, we're gonna get you the mic.
I'm trying to picture this in my mind in a class period. Are you working with smaller groups potentially to fill some holes that kids have had as they move through their education in math, as well as working on the content at the same time?
That, yes and no. So we are going through grade level content, but when we never teach anything whole group. So when we break off into parallel teach, which is Ashley takes half of the room and I take half of the room, we independently teach the content and it drastically increases engagement, which kind of naturally fills some of those holes. They also have access now, because it's grade level content, they have access to tools that they didn't previously have access to, like calculators and just things that when naturally with high school level content, you get to begin using, and it takes away a lot of those barriers. So when students don't or are struggling with the content, that's part of our co-planning, is figuring out what things do we need to make sure they know, or what thing, like Ashley's really great about identifying what things are they going to really struggle with that are much lower level, that are going to hold them back from this, and how do we build in a support? Do we build in a support by giving them a resource? Do we pull them as a small separate group? Do we just kind of keep an eye on students who might be struggling with that and then reflect and maybe do a station the next time and specifically talk to those 3 kids about what they need? It kind of varies and changes based on what the need is in the room.
But just having half the class size in itself, it's, working with 13 kids, they get a lot more support from a teacher that way. So just doing that parallel teaching, even if they're getting that exact same lesson, we can build in more scaffolds and more support for them. So that can help close some of those gaps too. So if we're working on a really hard geometry concept, but they don't have all their algebra gaps closed, we can still help with some of those lower level algebra skills just because we have less students to help manage within those parallel groups or within a small group.
And they're more willing to try when they know that they're working on something that all of their peers are also working on mastering, so they don't feel stupid. That's a huge piece, is just working on skills that my peers are also struggling to grasp. This isn't just me anymore.
How do you continue this? How do those, you two are, I assume, going up a grade, or you're going to take a different math class next year that's more advanced than the one you had this year, correct? I mean, those kids are following you.
We're not the only two people co-teaching at the high school. There's other co-teaching partners. Like there's co-teaching partners that are doing the algebra class before us as well. And I have another co-teaching partner that I'm teaching the year above us.
All right, that's our question. These kids are not going to be dropped into a self-contained classroom next year. They're going to have a chance for co-teaching next year too. You're hoping to have a co-teaching opportunity for these kids every year.
Well, so for their senior year.
Yeah, as they move up to junior and senior year, there's also chances of co-planning. We have financial algebra and also math 301.
Yeah.
And what we're hoping is by having the co-teach at the freshman and sophomore level, algebra and geometry, that those kids have increased their skills to the point where now they can co-plan with a financial algebra teacher or a math 301 teacher, and then those students still continue to move on and get that opportunity.
So they're not going to be dropped. They're not going to be dropped. They're going to get support all the way through.
Yeah, their IEP will drive it.
Great. Okay. My question was, isn't it hard? A regular ed teacher, a high school teacher tends to have an opinion on what they need to teach. And a special ed teacher normally has a situation where they're trying to help out kids because they're behind. Is it kind of hard for you two to work together? Because one of you, I mean, you're taught, your professional, your college work was totally different. Your content, you're based on content, you're based on what the needs of each kid is. Is it hard to combine those two philosophies into one that works? Or do you spend a lot of time arguing about what to do?
We don't ever argue.
And I think that's what makes the classroom work so well, because she's a master of her content and I'm a master of my content. And when you mix the two together, it like hits all of the needs of the students in the classroom.
So when we co-plan, we walk through the lesson and decide what things do we both deem as extremely valuable to say and to drive home. So that if one of our groups veers us in one direction or the other, as they sometimes do, we're both coming back to the same foundational principles that we already decided on ahead of time.
And a key to that is co-planning.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it does take a lot of time. Like the co-planning component, it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of effort. And that's what drives our instruction. We have to have that co-planning.
But fifth period always goes best because it's the third class in a row. Yes. And we are like reflecting for the 5 minutes in between every class period. And we're like, okay, we got to do that different. Like, no.
Called monitor and adjust, right?
Yeah.
What does your PLC look like on a weekly, twice a month, or however often PLC was that look like? What's your department?
So I attend the math PLC that they do.
So we both do the math PLC, identifying common assessments, and it's really great because once we start really getting into having common assessments, she just knows what kids are going to struggle with, what they're going to see, what they're going to think, she just can identify all of the misconceptions they're going to have as I'm walking through how I would do the math content. She's identifying what she already knows is going to be a struggle.
Yeah, I'd like to expand on what they're saying. Like you talked about, it seems like they'd be separate or they'd have contradictory approaches based on their learning. But as 8 years ago, 7 years ago, when I first kind of got into this job and was running into issues with things, one thing I really came to me was we have gen ed teachers who learn the content and they're passionate about the content, and our special education students are not getting to access that. But our general education teachers didn't necessarily understand the disabilities, why they needed wait time, why they needed chunking, or what it meant to reduce problems and things like that. Like what, it wasn't just taking the first 10 or, but really in-depth understanding of why you're doing those accommodations. And then you have our special ed teachers who understood the disabilities, understood what that meant, what those students really needed, but weren't content experts. They didn't take those content classes in college. They really didn't have that passion for that. They had the passion for helping those students. When you really look at that and then you look at the laws and how they're written, it is all set up for them to work together. It really is set up for a gen ed teacher to be passionate about that content and really design that with the help of a special educator who come along and, just like they say, like problem solve and anticipate different things and mesh that. And they've done a great job. Not all of our partnerships are as great as this too. They're our exemplar. And part of that is, experimenting and find out who does work together, but it really is set up for them to be together. And then on the PLC question, we've gone through great length to really put, especially our secondary teachers, in PLC groups with their gen ed peers. So our special education teachers are in the math PLCs, they're in the English PLCs, and then at our elementary school, they're split up into those as well. And we do have plans down the line to have our DLC or self-contained teachers actually join those groups as well, so that we can better do inclusion with our self-contained students.
And to build off that, speaking to grade, Eric and Ashley kept on talking about grade level standard. What we're really focusing on is access for our students and finding ways that they can be included. I think traditionally we said, you don't know your multiplication table, so you can't take an algebra class. Instead, we need to allow those kids to have access to that, because even though they might not know their multiplication tables, it doesn't mean that they can't learn algebra and geometry, because we use those tools. And historically, they didn't get access to that. So not only did they not know their multiplication tables, but they didn't know all these other things. And they were stuck in a room doing multiplication tables for their entire career. And why put that barrier on because of some lack of skills, when you can have access to all these other skills? And as what we're finding is that our gen ed teachers, as they're open to that, and they're open to that strength-based view and saying, here's what the kids can do, it's amazing what the kids can produce, but it's a mindset.
Yeah, and kind of on top of that too, like we're producing community members. We're producing people that are going to be in our community, and if they don't know their multiplication charts, that we don't want that to stop them from being able to participate and be active in our community. So we're really focused on what are those resources, what are those. We live in so much technology right now. How can we teach them to overcome, go through, go around, all the barriers, anything that might be in their way. I just think about, I was on the phone a few years ago with somebody, and we were having like in-depth conversation. It was an outside person, and they weren't really, in my mind, being really nice to me, and they used a big word, and I had no idea what that big word was, and there was no way I was going to admit it to that person on the phone. So I deviated the conversation. I got out my cell phone, I looked up the word, and then I used it in a sentence to show that I did know what that word meant. But that's using my resources. That's like I didn't understand, so I'm using my resource to be able to participate in that conversation. It's very similar with these students. Like, how can we keep them moving? How can we help them reach their dreams, their goals, their aspirations, and not get caught up in what they can't do, but what can they do? Any other questions? Michael Thorner, anything?
So it can be shorter.
No, this is video.
company. That was great. Public comment on non-discussion agenda items. We have two people. Actually, Carrie Blevins on UDL training.
I just wanted to know, I didn't know what that stood for. What is UDL training?
So UDL is Universal Design for Learning, and it's an approach of learning to try and eliminate barriers for students so they have access to the content. So really starting with the standard and then figuring out how can we get our students to get to that standard. And so are there different ways that we can represent that information? Are there different ways that we can engage students to get to that standard? And then finally, are there different ways that we can assess our students to make sure they get to that standard? So that's kind of the philosophy of it. And so there's more to it, but that's kind of just a general idea of UDL.
I mean, just like for an example, like if students can't read at the grade level standard, like is there a way maybe they're watching a YouTube or they're listening to the book instead of reading the book, but they still get that information so they can participate in the class or the activity and the similar, like they can't, if they're not able to write a 5-paragraph paper, can they do a presentation? Can they do a project? Can they show someone whether they understand the skill or the knowledge side through one path in the traditional side?
What's the MTSS?
That's $1 million question. Multi-tiered systems of support. So what that means is that from a social emotional learning, academic, and behavioral aspect, we have things that all students should have access to, and we identify like, here's the things at the base level that all kids should have academically, social emotionally, and behaviorally. And then we have a percentage of the population that are what we call tier 2, and we identify systems in place for those students in those 3 areas. And then finally, we identify like the tippy top, like this and this wasn't quite doing it for them. So what's that third system? And we're still really working as a district in identifying what those things are and making sure that we have solid systems in place. And what that does is it gives us a road to go down before we automatically say this student didn't learn things the way that we wanted them to, they're in special education. We have interventions that occur so that we make sure that, okay, maybe we just had to do it a different way to catch this kid. And then that prevents so many students being put into special education.
I had written down MTSS, I'd written down SBAC, ELA, and UDL. Our teachers are so used to these initials that they think everybody knows it, and we don't. And that people should, as they make presentations, understand that a lot of these initials are confusing to a lot of people. And thank you very much for asking. Peter Marinacci.
Do you want me to speak from here or?
Yeah, well, you need to speak from the mic.
Microphone so they can hear you on the live stream.
This one.
Boy, it sounds like it's working.
Good evening. Hey, I just wanted to say, after listening to the previous meeting, study session, thank you. I was having a little Biden moment there. Big shout out to Amy. Just big compliment since she's been on board. She did not pay me to make any of these statements. So I just want to make that clear. Sure, there's more work to be done. She's a person of one. Love to get the curriculum on there as a parent. There is a material improvement in the website. Great job on the community survey. Amy's a listener, and she really solicits input. And on the community survey, I recommend we do it twice a year to really get that community engagement aspect. I think, the comments she made during her presentation about the trust with the community. So the work she does is super, super important in helping bridge that gap, transparency, communication, giving people visuals. It's also more efficient when things are online. So thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Peter. Approval of consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, we have approval of vouchers, we have financial reports, employment contracts, resignations, and approval of leave requests, all 5 or 6. Does anybody want anything pulled out of the consent agenda? If not, I'd love to have a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved by
Whoever I am.
whoever he is. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Consent agenda is done.
Action items.
Oh, yeah. Action items. Approval of travel requests. Joe?
Yep, that's for you guys to approve, so you can approve A.
You just, that's what, the basketball team going to do?
Basketball tournament in Bellevue.
That's all we have for travel requests?
That is all.
Okay. Motion, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the travel request. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of resolution delegating authority to WIAA.
Nothing to add besides what's already posted there. I don't have it sitting in front of me, so.
I assume this is a rubber stamp we do every year.
It is.
It is.
Okay.
I'll move that we approve the delegating authority to the WIAA
All
resolution.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Approval of voluntary desegregation plan for West Valley Innovation Center.
I'm just going to read it because Peter put this in front of me, and he's obviously the subject expert when it comes to this piece of it. But the West Valley School District Board of Directors established the goal of ensuring that the West Valley Innovation Center reflects the diversity of the student population of the school district. School administration will work with staff, students, family, and community members to develop strategies to accomplish this goal. Progress will be reported annually to the Board of Directors. Progress will be measured with the following baseline data from the 22-23 school year, which Peter shared in this attachment.
Okay. Thank you.
Just, I'd like to add just a little bit of clarification for the rest of the community. So the biggest part of this really was that there was a gender imbalance. And so most of the attendees at the Innovation Center are male. So there was an effort here to try and balance that out. And that's what this is really about, just for those of you who might not be aware. So.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the voluntary desegregation plan?
I'll move that we approve the plan.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Items arising.
Nothing for me.
There's one, was notified, well, got an email from one of our constituents that was overly concerned, or maybe not overly, that's not a good word, but really concerned about the nutritional value of what we're feeding our kids for breakfast and lunch. And she went through, it was like 3 pages of all the things that our kids, primarily primary grades, are getting. And I think we buy all that like everybody else. It's on a state plan, I think, where you buy it all. But a lot of it is, or are, the things are those that we wouldn't feed our kids at home most of the time, or a lot of folks wouldn't. And she was really concerned about it because we're wasting so much of that food. Kids go to lunch, they eat 1 or 2 things and throw the rest in the garbage. And I was just wondering if there's a way that we could access more. And we had a presentation here a couple of weeks ago where we do access a lot of the local produce and those kind of things when available. Mm-hmm. And I know they supplement with that, but you take a 3, 4, 6, 8-year-old kid, goes up to a place to pick things out to eat. He's not going for the vegetables. And if you put the other things out there that are more tempting and sweet and less nutritional, that's what they're going to settle on. And there's got to be a way to deal with that issue, I think. And, you know, some people aren't going to think it's that big a deal, but there are a lot of parents that do. And I know I catch a lot of guff at my house because I'm the one that fills the candy dish and stuff for when the grandkids come over. And then they get into it and eat it. And when they leave, I get sent to my room, you know, because I didn't live by the rules of the boss. So that was just, and I only had the one, but it was really extensive and she made a lot of sense.
You know, at a middle school principal, lunch was pizza. For the vast majority of the kids, that was lunch, was pizza. And we always had other offerings. And I really think that I saw in the kitchen staff making an effort to have kids take more than that pizza. At least take, you know, whether they eat it or not, we have no control over, but the staff in the kitchen worked at getting more on a plate than just pizza. But we couldn't sit there as they ate and force them to eat those vegetables. So I don't know what the answer is, but
No, one of the things we used to get, I know, and I used to love them, were cheese zombies.
Oh, they still do.
But they get them, yeah. But now they come in a plastic bag.
Really?
You know, sealed up. Yeah,
Oh.
they're shipped in a box full of little plastic hamburger things. And when they heat them, I mean, I'm sorry, but mine would have went in the garbage too. But the ones that the cooks actually used to make to go with your soup and stuff were fantastic. I loved them. I won't eat those other ones anymore.
Well, I guess that's progress.
I know we have an outstanding nutritional director. I know she does
Yes, we
everything in her power to try to make that food as nutritious as possible with the amount of regulations and requirements that are made and put on school districts to serve food. So I know she tries her darnest to do so. So I know that's something that's always, I mean, a lot of districts are in the same boat where some of these food items, a lot of students don't like, but unfortunately there's a lot of regulations and requirements for some of those servings. So. But I know we have an excellent nutritional director, and I know she does really good work in trying to make it tasteful.
In no way was that intended to insult or demean our director.
Wouldn't take it that way.
She does a fantastic job. I was just wondering if there's a way that somehow we have purse string controls where we could allocate funds or whatever to substitute some of that stuff.
They didn't mess up turkey and gravy, did they?
No. Gotta watch sodium.
Depends on how you look at the potatoes.
There's sodium in there, a lot.
Any other items rising? Okay, reports. Any input on reports? I saw that we're still 100 kids over. Peter, is that right?
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he snuck in.
Which is critical. Okay, superintendent's report.
I'll stand as written here. I want to point out one thing on 96th and where Cottonwood's at. You'll notice there's new flashers. It's safety now. So it's been a long time coming. I know people have been asking for that for like 4 to 10 years, it seems like. So we're excited to get those operational and there to create more safety and walking paths for students. So super excited about that.
Good. Board reports, board development. Okay, we have a collective bargaining session. We have
probably 20 minutes.
We have a private session for about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and no action will be taken. Perfect. Correct?
Yep.
All right.
meet at 15 minutes. Okay, group, we ready to adjourn? All right, meeting's adjourned.